Hey everyone and welcome to Storytime. My name is Jake and today we are going to be looking at the subreddit r/prorevenge, where people tell us their best stories and when they got revenge on someone or something they didn't like. If you're new around here, please do hit subscribe down below so that you never miss out on another video. But for now, let's sit back, relax and enjoy some pro-revenge stories. A coworker was eating people's lunches, so I poisoned them and got them fired. So I like to bring my own food into the office, and we have a fridge to put things into, and I have my food in tubs with my name on them. A coworker would sometimes not see people's names on food and think it was theirs, so would heat it up and eat it and then apologize. They did this enough for it to be an annoyance, but not enough for our employers to really care. This has been happening with my food for once or twice a month. Last month I had enough, and I like spicy food, but don't bring it into the office as sometimes I'll let people try some of my food and my cooking. I ordered a bag of ghost chili peppers, and put the full bag into a bit of chili that would last for several days. I took this into the office and had it for lunch every day. Midweek, my lunch went missing, and I was waiting for the person who was stealing my lunch get a shock when they ate my lunch. What happened in reality was someone got sent home sick, and the next day they were off, and I was told they went to the doctors for stomach pains. 2 weeks went by and the coworker who was off refused to talk about it and said HR was involved, so I knew they were going to try get me fired. I went home and ordered another bag of ghost chilies and made another batch of my chili, this time with only one chili in a single tub. I put this in the freezer, and the following Monday, I was told I had a HR meeting that day. I refused and said they need to give me 24 hours to find someone to come into the meeting with me, and the next day I had a manager come into the meeting and brought in my, now heated, ghost chili infused chili. The long and short is, I was told I could be fired for trying to poison the person who was stealing my lunch. And I asked if they admitted to stealing people's lunch, which they did. I then said I have a batch of the chili in question with me, and I like spicy food. My liking of spicy food shouldn't stop me from having it work, since it doesn't smell when heated, like fish does. And my manager agreed it was on the person who took my lunch without knowing how spicy it was, and I should not be held liable if they eat something of someone else's that doesn't agree with them. My manager and I then ate some of the chili and offered it to the other people in the meeting, some of which tried it and agreed while it was spicy, it was clearly what I liked as I was fine eating it. The meeting ended and nothing happened. I wasn't taken into another meeting, and my lunch wasn't taken anymore. But the person who had stole our lunch got a slap on the wrist and was allowed to stay at work. Lunches started to go missing again, so my manager went to HR to say that lunches were going missing, and he knew who was taking it and had proof this time. And when they asked for proof, he presented the meeting record with the line highlighted where they admitted they had stolen lunch, and the line where HR had said this was not what the meeting was about. They were fired the next day for theft of property, and told they would not be given a reference. I seriously don't understand how you can bring yourself to steal someone else's lunch. Like, you work in the same place as them, they're gonna know you do it eventually, why not just bring your own lunch in? Why? Take my money? Sell me rubbish? Then be prepared to lose your business. So a few decades back, I was involved with a group of guys with a little money, and we wanted something substantial to invest in. We decided to buy a restaurant franchise. I will not even say what kind, as they could identify me. Well, everything was going along swimmingly, until my partners backed out. I, unfortunately, was the face of the group, and my signature was on the bottom line. So, I got stuck with running the place. It soon became apparent that there were a lot of inconsistencies. The big number one was that the sales in the prospectus were nowhere near what was being generated. Then, there were other things. Customers calling for their regular order, Well, it turned out that my particular franchise had been used for the past several years as a front. The former manager had made some serious coin and was not happy that I purchased his place. Well, life is not fun when you have just sunk 6 figures, and the likelihood is that you have flushed it down the toilet. However, I was not going to be trifled with. First, I called the accounting firm who signed off on the prospectus. The partner in charge was taken aback. They had never signed off. I presented myself in their offices and spent the next few hours with them and their attorneys. Their name could not be associated with something fraudulent. Next, I wanted my money back, and the chief franchisor told me they would immediately put mine up for sale, but the market was not quite as high as it was when I bought it, less than 3 months previously. Then, the prick had the audacity to demand that I paid up for my last order from the commissary. Something else to consider. I took the price list provided by the central commissary that we as franchisees were compelled to use. Buying fruits, vegetables, cheese, and meat from outside the system would be accompanied by fines from the franchisor. I marched myself back to the accounting firm and asked for a bit of analysis. Turns out, commissary prices were from 10 to 300% higher than market. In other words, the franchisor was not interested in food. They were interested in turning around franchises. Well, that little report found its way into the hands of 20 local franchisees. Suddenly, the central commissary was not being used. The district manager starts showing up writing fines. Turns out the district manager is the guy who was supplying the manager of my franchise. I have him on a discarded VHS security tape selling. So I take the tapes to the accounting firm for secure storage. Then I go to the franchise's offices. I lay it on the line that I have their district guy selling stuff in my restaurant that they shouldn't be. They laugh at me until I tell them that I am the one who supplied the report to the rest of their franchisees. Oh, and by the way, we are starting an action against you. I then showed them that we had placed liens on the business they owned, their commissary, their homes, and their vehicles. I say I have enough to put all you guys in jail. So, their mental giants sit me down, write up a little release, and go get me a certified check for every dime I put into the franchise. I agreed to the release. However, they do not realize that the gouging and the evidence is still in the hands of others. All they succeeded in doing was to get me off the list of owners suing them. Well, the case came to court, and who do you think was on the stand giving a complete rundown? One of them stood up in court and said, "Didn't we pay you to shut up?" No, you refunded me the money you stole. Now they had 19 other guys taking them apart. I heard one of the franchisers cried when they took his Porsche. His wife left him soon after. I'm kinda worried for this guy though. I mean, I'd probably get personal protection for a while, maybe witness protection. I don't know if they can do that, but yeah, it kind of seems like they've all just hit rock bottom and they've got nothing to lose, so they're probably going to go after him. A complete lack of foresight. To preface, this scenario involves my roommate. Let's call her Callie. Her ex, let's call him Tweaky McGee. Myself, Tweaky's fling, Nikki, and my roommate's dog, an adorable blue-nosed pitty. Let's go with Derpy. Keep in mind, I myself am 25. Callie is 25 as well, but Tweaky McGee is 19. This will be relevant later. Now, this story begins with my roommate. She had just gotten out of an exhausting, but not necessarily abusive relationship, and she was on the lookout for something casual while she regained her independence and reclaimed her life. Unfortunately, Tweaky McGee came around and made himself at home in our house. At first, it wasn't too bad. We all moderately smoke, and he knew the right people, so it seemed like a fair give and take, considering we didn't pay much for smoke throughout the time he was essentially squatting. But he put forth nothing when it came to groceries and bills. Now, my roommate was far enough removed from her previous relationship at this point to be fiercely protective of her independence. But given the age difference, she chalked up some glaringly obvious red flags when they began to present. Tweaky got his pet name for a number of reasons, but the main one was this. He had an Adderall prescription, 20 milligrams, and he was prescribed the meds. He chomped on quite a few, but it quickly spiraled into a 10-pill per day habit. Firstly, he was just chomping, but began to take them in other ways from our living room table after about 2 weeks. As his habit progressed, Callie also partook, as she had a very demanding job, and the extra energy helped her through her 70-hour weeks. I believe that this is another reason why she put up with it as long as she did. As their relationship progressed, the oh-so-common side effects began to creep on both of them. Irritability, poor short-term memory, inability to accurately communicate emotions and thoughts. Since I did my best to stay out of their relationship, as it's not my place to interfere in something I know her to be smart and mature enough to handle, I never really got involved, but she and I had many deep conversations while he was out on runs. I felt like our talks were making headway until one day, Tweaky McGee got a bug and started impetuously bringing up the idea of getting a dog. Keep in mind, we live in a college town, and while we're both out of school, we work full-time in a very small 2-bedroom house. She was apprehensive at first, since she was already going through the motions of cutting him off, but she had also wanted a dog for years at this point. After 2 weeks of Callie and Tweaky visiting various shelters, they decided on Derpy. Derpy was an absolutely adorable 6-month-old blue-nosed pit bull with one of the most prominent personalities I have ever seen in a dog. My family used to train dogs professionally. Incredibly playful, super smart, and the perfect demeanor for a small house with a bigger backyard. Now, only being your friendly neighborhood smoker and not partaking in the speedy delights, I saw it for what it was, but she was blinded by the adorable pup. Tweaky knew that Callie was setting the stage to kick his butt to the curb, and thought that a dog was the perfect ball and chain for the situation. But his age and addiction caught up with him. All the paperwork and payments were made in Callie's name, including the registration paperwork, initial vet visits, professional pet sitters, toys, etc. Since she works incredibly long hours, and Tweaky essentially being a bum, he got the thought in his head that the dog was his, and when push came to shove, he could keep him. Well, the day of reckoning came after about 3 weeks of escalating early morning arguments and general irritation. And while I was at work, the breakup finally happened. Cops ended up being called, but no blows were thrown. Tweaky packed up all his stuff and drove it back to his mother's. Then came back, told Callie he was leaving, and took Derpy with him. At this time, the cops that had showed up had no idea what had been transpiring, and let him walk off with the dog. Less than 24 hours later, Callie had made so many calls to the police department, lawyers, and pet advocacy groups that she had her course of action laid out. After the filing was complete, she was beyond paranoid because of the threat of retaliation. I'm a pretty big dude, 6'4", 235 pounds, so I knew I could stand my ground. But she's a tiny little thing, and I have a full-time job. In my state, any disputes regarding animals are to be settled in civil court, and the pets are to be treated as property. Now, I don't know about y'all, but pets are family, and do not deserve to be treated on the same base as property. The next day, she had filed a civil suit in an attempt to get Derpy back. At her first court date, she presented all the evidence of her ownership of Derpy, as well as the resources she has available to her in order to provide the best level of care for the pup. Tweaky countered with a slew of baseless accusations, essentially claiming that she had been abusive to Derpy, which is false, and that she doesn't have the time nor resources to properly take care of him, which is also false. Unfortunately, the civil court system tends to draw these things out. The court eventually ruled in her favour and ordered Tweaky to return Derpy, but when the cops turned up, apparently Derpy had ran away. Before this, she was only trying to get Derpy back and not really seeking any financial compensation or punishment. By this time, approximately 2 months after the breakup, which is BS on its own, he had already been in and out of a relationship with another woman, Nikki. Nikki had been around and heard about the court stuff, but didn't know the other party. Once she found out it was Callie who Tweaky had messed over, she started messaging Callie, telling her a bunch of info about Derpy, as they were friends back in the day. It turns out that since the breakup, Tweaky had been staying with his mother, and honest to goodness hoarder with about 10 square foot of usable space in her apartment. Tweaky was also unable to take Derpy out on walks or put playdates due to the fact that there was still a return order for Derpy. One day, he took Derpy to his dealer's house, who also have 2 pitties of his own. However, Derpy is in his teenage stage and began getting fresh with one of the other pits and ended up getting pretty hurt. Since the return order was still in effect and the info about him and the dog was given to every vet within 50 miles, he couldn't take him to get treatment. Upon hearing this, Callie, now off the uppers and much more clear-headed, absolutely lost it. She went to her lawyer to see if there was anything she could do to expedite the return of Derpy. Turns out she has a few options. Cue to today, Tweaky has officially been charged with felony theft and animal abuse/neglect charges, and they're wrapping up the legal process with pleas and other legal whatnot. He faces up to 8 years in prison, and if he doesn't return Derpy within 1 week for today, he will receive the maximum sentence. Part of me feels bad for him because he absolutely ruined the rest of his life at such a young age, but Callie and I both know that he wasn't going to get any better regardless. He had his chance and he squandered it. Yeah, well, I know my opinion on that and that I couldn't care less about what he got. To me, 8 years seems easy for what he did. Hey everyone, I hope you all had a really good day and that you enjoyed that video. If you want to check out some other videos, then click on screen right now or check out the playlist down below. If you enjoyed that video, then please do leave a like. And if you want to submit your own stories, then you can do so by joining the Discord in the top link in the description. But thank you so much for watching and I will see you very soon.